Diane is trying to write a memoir. This is BoJack Horseman, episode 10 of season 6, and Diane is struggling. She has this idea of a story that might have some value, a complex or involved piece that might take all of the trauma and damage she's gone through and make something beautiful out of it, like a broken salad bowl stuck together with gold. Through some kind of Kintsugi, she wants to pull all of these broken pieces together into a whole that will somehow take all of that damage, all of that trauma, and make something out of it. Good damage. But she can't figure out how, and trying to force it isn't working either. Tim is trying to write a script. This is me pretending I'm writing this script, when all of this was filmed after I wrote it. I can't say I have much in the way of trauma or damage to begin with, and still less I'd be willing to share, but I do have a stack of failed scripts and half-written essays that I keep getting stuck on. I want to somehow make the time I spent on them worth it. So that's what this video is. A strange mixture of half-written short stories, half-baked essays, and strange ideas that in one way or another I've been stuck on. For lack of a better word, this is some kind of Kintsugi. In my final year of high school, I felt pretty burnt out. I was never a super hard-working student, but I generally did enjoy the English and writing-based electives I had chosen. But in my last 2 years, I had Ms. G for English, and Ms. G was not a great teacher. Under her, all of my enthusiasm for school all but evaporated. Every subject was now a chore to sit through, except one: art. Ms. D, my art teacher, was the complete opposite of Ms. G. Where one was driven and passionate, the other didn't even notice that I spent every lesson drawing, talking to friends, or wishing I was somewhere else. During that time, art was the only subject I cared about, and I really cared about it. Come the end of my final year, all the lessons had stopped and we were just preparing for our final exams. Around this time, our school would always set up an exhibition of that year's art major works. I had a secret ambition to be one of the highlights of that exhibition. Not because I wanted to be better than anyone else, but rather because I really cared about that class, and I was proud of what I'd put together. Although I can look at that work now, years later, and recognise its shortcomings, I'm still pretty proud of it. So when Ms. D sent us to our next class with a request to hold us back so we could help out setting up that exhibition, I knew where I wanted to be, and I knew what I wanted to be doing. And when Ms. G said no, I was angry. I never stood out during school. I never spoke back, I never got into fights, and I always did my work. I kept my head down. I wouldn't keep my head down this time. Exactly what I said, I've forgotten, but it was something to the effect of, "You can't tell me I have work to do here, when you haven't taught me a thing all year, and I spent every second in your class wishing I was in someone else's." There was a pause, and then I walked out. Now, if this were a fictional story, that's where the story would end. I stood up to the teacher that had killed my interest in school for the benefit of the one teacher who still inspired that interest. But, of course, that's not what happened. I did walk out. I did return to setting up that exhibition. But now Ms. D said we could return to our classes and help out during lunch break instead. Now, as I mentioned, I like to keep my head down. I didn't like to cause a fuss, and I certainly wasn't going to tell Ms. D what I'd told one of her colleagues in a different department. I had every opportunity to skip that English class, but I didn't skip classes either. So I walked back into that classroom, avoided eye contact with Ms. G, and sank back into my seat without a word of explanation. It was simultaneously the closest I ever came to asserting myself during that time, and the clearest example of a situation where I couldn't manage to do so. Telling people what I want or don't want is something I was never great at. It still isn't. Like and subscribe, by the way. Posting videos like this does something rather strange to you. While I don't talk about personal stories particularly often, I do find myself in a mindset where I'm mining my past for anecdotes, stories, or details that can lend support to a larger thesis. It changes the way I look at the past, and it's also changed the way I look at the present. I recently took a trip through central New South Wales. It was great. Almost 2 weeks without internet or contact with anyone outside of the friends I was taking the trip with. A camera in hand and a beautiful landscape in front of me, it was something I'd longed for while under lockdown. I didn't take a book or download any movies and thought I'd spend my spare time writing a script for a video. I'd written most of a previous video, Personality Online, while on a trip like this one, and I was quite happy with the result. With 2 weeks to come up with something, I was sure I could write something interesting, or at least get the ball rolling. But I couldn't. I was happy with the trip, of course. The size and power of a wedge-tailed eagle is something that's hard to impress upon someone that hasn't seen one before, and seeing emus in the wilds was wonderful. But somehow some of my motivation for this channel waned a little on that trip. That was temporary, but it only came back after I was back home. In place of writing then, I collected footage and photos, not just because I wanted them for myself, but also because I thought they might be useful in a video. I kept collecting shots like these because, although I'm certainly not a vlogger, I felt something in them might be interesting or useful. It's a habit that I think is probably a little unhealthy. Trying to narrativize your experiences can make it hard to stay in the moment. I think the trips I value most are the ones I don't really have any record of, because they can only be mine, and mine alone. The opposite holds true for my music. The stuff I've made in the 3 bands I've been a part of feel like a part of me, and those parts that never saw the light of day still kind of hurt to think about. All those hours spent with friends working to a purpose, creating and refining a mess of sounds into semi-coherent ideas, are precious to me. And I'm frustrated I didn't record more of what we came up with. Worse are the tracks I'm really proud of that we never properly recorded. There will never be a clean recording of this track. And that's sort of devastating to me. I love this track, and I don't care that it'll never sell. I just want a decent copy for myself. Something to point to and say, look, I made that. Diane is trying to write a memoir. But something else keeps popping into her head, another story. One she can't see the value in, but it's easy, it's fun, and surprisingly, people respond really well. Maybe what she's making isn't important or difficult. Maybe it won't change the world or make her see herself in a different light, but maybe, just maybe, that's okay. Tim is trying to write a script. He has all these ideas that will set his videos apart. But they aren't working. This video isn't interesting, and something else has caught his eye. It's not a big project, and it won't have any impact, but maybe, just maybe, that's okay. Maybe you can see why I got stuck on some of these ideas, and maybe some of them will even resonate with you. But for the most part, I don't think they will. So I think I'll leave this here. Thanks, as always, go to my patrons at patreon.com/varioushorses. Without their support, I wouldn't feel comfortable making videos like this one. Cheers. Have a good one.